The darkness comes unnoticed. She doesn't appear right away. At first, it just seems that everything is going its own way. Anthony and his family recently moved to a small village lost in the woods. The first weeks were calm: home, work, everyday life. But there are places where horror settles, no matter how long you live here. Sooner or later, he will find everyone. It slowly envelops, penetrates into thoughts, makes the heart cool from the feeling of darknesslessness. But for the chosen ones, this horror opens up differently. The only question is what he will offer, and what he will take in return. Sometimes there is nothing better than silence, sitting with a book when it's bad outside the window, and dive into a creepy story with your head, especially if it is filled with mysticism, fear, and gloomy illustrations. When text and images merge together, the perfect format is born: a comic book. This is exactly what became the cult horror story, Bunny, which formed the basis of the popular visual novel Shadows of the Forest. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of fans. Now this story has a new life. But this story is not about the game. Autumn has already fully come into its own. A strong wind blew the rain into the windows. The trees cracked, losing their branches, and the streets were drowning in water and mud. I didn't want to go outside at all. I looked out the window and muttered to myself, I'm definitely not going anywhere today. And why? Next to it is a laptop with work files, a TV, a few games, and a refrigerator with supplies. I woke up late, almost at 3 o'clock. Yesterday I sat with the documents again until dawn. Glancing at the calendar, I smiled. Seriously. Halloween. Turned on the TV, local news. The host with a strained smile reported on the storm warning. The highest level of danger. Residents are advised not to leave their homes and to stock up on water and food. How caring you are, I muttered, switching the channel. At that moment, my dog Buddy ran into the room. He happily wagged his short tail and poked his nose into his knee. Well, did you miss me? He could have woken me up earlier. I called him for a reason. Once I saved him as a puppy, after a very unpleasant story that I would rather not mention. I still remember that smell, that bag, and what was inside. It was then that I truly realized for the first time how fine the line between man and the monster is. My name is Max Carter. I am a criminal lawyer. I protect those from whom even colleagues turn away. Maniacs, murderers, those whom society would prefer to erase from the face of the earth. My business cards are in every police station in the city, because when another animal appears in human form, they know who to call. And it was this evening that my phone rang again. I was just pouring food for Buddy when a short vibrating sound was heard from the hallway. The smartphone was lying with the screen down, and I was sure that I had set the silent mode. The stranger was the message about a missed call. Unknown number. I was rarely recruited for nothing. Friends avoided calling for no reason, and customers usually communicated through intermediaries. I picked up the phone and stared at the screen for a few seconds, hesitating. Then I clicked, call back. The horns dragged on for a long time, almost unpleasantly. The phone was finally picked up. Hello, I said calmly. There was a heavy breath at the other end. You called me? Grumbled a man's voice. No, but you just called me. A short pause. I'm a sheriff from Riverwood County, Mike Stewart. We have a problem here, and the detainee insists that you come, called your name, and showed the business card. I frowned. Detained? For what exactly? 3 dead, he replied dryly. Dismemberment. It looks like a ritual. I felt a familiar feeling awaken inside. Cold, almost pleasant excitement. Why don't you take him to the city? The sheriff sighed. The roads are washed away. The bridge collapsed. The storm does not allow the technique to pass. We locked it in the basement of the old church. It's safe there. In the basement of the church? I couldn't resist. Are you serious? It's the only place with thick stone walls, he replied sharply. It's in shackles, and he says he will only talk to you. I looked at Buddy. The dog watched me closely, as if he understood everything. Good. I will come. Not a word to the press. This is important. Agreed. Just be careful. It gets dark early. The connection was cut off. Outside the window, the wind tore off something metal. There was a ringing and a scream. I pulled on my jacket, hid the revolver in my holster, and stroked Buddy's head. Wait for me. I'm fast. The road to Riverwood turned into complete chaos. The trees lay across the path. The streams of water cut the primer like a knife. Several times I almost got stuck, but stubbornly drove on. But when the old oak fell behind me with a rumble, I realized that there was no way back. Damn, I whispered, clutching the steering wheel. The village met me with darkness. There was no light in any window. Only the old wooden church was visible in front. Its cross shone in flashes of lightning. At the edge of the forest stood a man in a cloak, Sheriff Stewart. He silently pointed his hand at the lawn. I got out of the car and saw it. 3 bodies, or what is left of them, mutilated, revealed, laid out in a strange order. The rain gathered inside the empty chests, mixing with the blood. Who did it? I asked quietly. He came by himself, replied the sheriff. He's covered in blood. With a knife, and with an ornament of the insides around the neck. I was talking about Halloween, and about the cycle of 25 years. I felt a chill run down my back. What's his name? Ethan Blake, 25. Arrived 2 months ago. The locals said it was strange. Closed. And the insides? I asked. Where are they? The sheriff lowered his eyes. He says he'll only tell you. I sighed heavily. Take me to him. When we approached the heavy door of the church basement, I felt really anxious for the first time. The lock creaked, the door opened. And at the same moment, something hit me on the back of the head with all its strength. The world is extinguished. The last thing I had time to think. It was a trap from the beginning. Consciousness returned in fragments. First the pain. Deaf, pulsating, as if someone was hammering nails right into the skull. Then the smell. Moisture, mold, old stones, and something else. Salty. Metallic. I opened my eyes. Darkness. Only the dim yellow light of the kerosene lamp is somewhere above. I tried to move. In vain. His hands were tied behind his back, his feet pulled with a rough rope. The head is heavy, the ears are ringing. Finally, I heard a voice. Calm, almost gentle. I looked up. Opposite against the wall sat a man, young, skinny, in dirty clothes, with dried blood on his neck and chest. The eyes are strange, too attentive, too alive. Ethan, I whispered. Yes? He smiled. You know my name, and I know yours, Mr. Carter. I was tense. Where is the sheriff? He's not here, Ethan replied. And he won't. He has already fulfilled his role. These words made the cold run down my spine. You used it. No. Ethan shook his head. He's just weak, like all of them. I looked around. The basement was old. Stone. The walls are cracked. The floor is damp. There are dark spots on the floor. Too many stains. Why am I here? I asked. Ethan stood up. His movements were smooth, almost ceremonial. Because you're not afraid. You listen to people like me. You look into the dark and don't turn away. He came closer. And also because the cycle has started again. What cycle? I asked through my teeth. Ethan leaned over and I could feel his breath. Every 25 years, the forest takes its own. He needs voices, bodies, witnesses. It's a delusion, I replied. Ritual killings don't make legends real. He laughed. Quiet. Unpleasant. You don't believe it yourself, Max. How many stories have you heard? How many monsters were protected? I was silent. They don't make it up, Ethan continued. They just don't know how to properly name what they saw. He stepped aside and removed something dark from the hook. When the lamp lit up the object, I almost got sick. Mask, made of fabric and fur. The long ears hung from the sides. It's a symbol, he said. A mediator. The forest doesn't talk to everyone. You're sick, I whispered. No, I'm elected. Suddenly there was a rumble from above, as if something heavy had fallen. Then the squeak. Slow. Wooden. Ethan froze. Do you hear me? I held my breath. Steps. Heavy. Unequal. They were heard somewhere above us, in the church itself. He came, Ethan whispered with delight. You made it. That's why they brought you. Who? I started. The light of the lamp trembled, and at the same moment I realized a terrible thing. Ethan was never in charge. The steps above our heads became clearer. The floor of the church creaked, as if moaning from every movement of the one who was walking. It was not a human move. Too slow. Too heavy. As if every step was measured, weighed. The gas lamp trembled more strongly. The flames twitched, and the shadows on the walls crawled, bending into unnatural shapes. Ethan got down on his knees. He's here, he whispered, trembling with delight. The owner of the forest came to accept the gift. I tensed my whole body trying to break the ropes. In vain. The heart was beating so that it seemed that everyone could hear it. You said you needed me, I said hoarsely. Why? Ethan slowly turned his head. Because you are a witness. And the judge. Someone who always stands between monsters and people. The forest felt it. Something heavy fell over us. A piece of old wood fell from the beam, and a piece of trouble fell. The air became thicker, as if we were covered with darkness. And then I heard a voice. It didn't sound in the ears. It appeared inside the head. Max Carter. My name sounded as if it was pronounced by many mouths at the same time. You've seen us before. Because of them. Because of those who were protected. I clenched my teeth. If you want to scare me, you're late. The shadow from the column began to move by itself. It stretched out, took shape. High. Too high. With long arms and a disproportionately narrow torso. Eyes. I didn't see them. I felt them. The cycle is over. And it started again. But this time, we don't need a shepherd. Ethan shuddered. Peace, sir. I did everything. His voice broke. I brought 3. The shadow did not even return to him. You were a tool. Sharp sound. Snunch. Ethan didn't even have time to scream. His body broke as if it was made of clay. Blood spilled on the stone, and the shadow became even thicker. I screamed, for the first time in many years. Now you, Max. The ropes on the hands loosened themselves. I fell to my knees, panting. What do you want? I whispered. The shadow leaned closer. I smelled the forest. Wet moss. Rot. Blood. We want a deal. I am not a priest or a shaman. But you are a lawyer. These words sounded almost mockingly. You know how to negotiate. Justify. Give the monsters a second chance. My breath was shaking. And what will I get? The pause was long. Life. Knowledge. And the opportunity to continue your business. What should I give? The shadow has retreated. And in the dark, I saw the forest. Not here in the head. Infinite. Alive. When the time comes, you'll bring us others. Those who are already on the edge. I understood the terrible truth. I've already done it. Unconsciously. Years. What if I refuse? I asked quietly. The lamp went out, and in complete darkness it sounded. Then you will stay here. Forever. The darkness held me tighter than any ropes. I didn't see anything, but I felt something big, old, and impatiently waiting for an answer. Time didn't matter here. A year could have passed, or a moment. I exhaled slowly. If I agree, my voice sounded dull. I remain a human being? The pause dragged on. You were never just human. Those words hit harder than any blow. In front of my eyes, as if the frames of the film were broken, the face flashed. My clients, maniacs, killers, those whom I pulled out of the loop, from the cameras, from the life. I always found a loophole. I always had time at the last moment, because someone wanted them to come out. I didn't bring them on purpose, I whispered. We don't need faith, just a choice. The darkness shrank closer. And what will happen to this place? I asked. With the church, with bodies. The forest will take its own. People call it an element, fire, an accident. I smiled bitterly, as always. Somewhere far away there was a crack, as if an old tree was breaking. And then, the light. I was lying on the cold ground near the edge of the forest. The rain has almost subsided. The damp wind drew the smell of smoke. There was no more church. In its place are burnt beams and black earth. The police arrived in the morning. The Miracle Bridge was found intact. Sheriff Stewart was not found. Ethan Blake, too. The case was quickly closed. I was questioned and released. They said I miraculously survived. I returned home in the evening. Buddy met me at the door, barking happily. I sank down next to him and held him for a long time, inhaling the familiar smell. The phone vibrated. A new call. Unknown number. I looked at the screen and answered. Yes, Maxa Carter is listening. There is silence at the other end. And then a familiar whisper, barely audible, but expressive. The cycle has begun. We have another one. I closed my eyes. Send the address. The call was cut off. I went to the window. The forest was dark on the horizon. He seemed to be looking back at me. And this time, I looked back. I stood in the middle of the room for a few more seconds, clutching the phone in my hand. The connection has already been cut off, but it seemed to me that the phone was still cold. Buddy looked at me as if he wanted to say something. I stroked his head and tried to smile. It's okay, friend. Work. But inside, I knew it wasn't a normal thing. Unknown number. The lost village. 3 dead. And the man who asked for me. Outside the window, the wind broke away from the chain again. Somewhere far away, behind the wall of rain, the forest was dark. And for some reason at that moment it seemed to me that he is looking straight at my house. I took my jacket, and I went out the door. But I didn't know yet that there will be no way back. I didn't know yet that the person who called me, I never planned to come back alive. If you want to know what happened next, subscribe to the channel and put a like, not to miss the second part of this story. Because sometimes, it is no longer possible to go back.